Welcome to Mondays with Maxwell. My name is Mark Cole. I'm the president and CEO of the John Maxwell Leadership Enterprise. I'm so excited to bring you this new series with John. You know, the funny thing about Mondays is there are many people who dread the first day of the work week. I'm sure that's why TGIF, Thank Goodness It's Friday, is such a popular segment. People look forward to the end of the week more than they do the start of the week. I know you're thinking, of course they do, Mark. Who says, thank God it's Monday? I'll tell you. John Maxwell says it. And you know what? He's not the only one. I believe every one of you watching this right now is just like John. You welcome Mondays because you look forward to starting your week off looking for ways to value people, looking for opportunities to add value to people. And you, my friends, are what Mondays with Maxwell are all about. Glengarry Glen Ross said, coffee is for closers. Well, I say Mondays are for leaders. Mondays with Maxwell are for the difference makers who dare to lead their life, not just accept it. Mondays with Maxwell's is for the value multipliers who grow from me to we, from success to significance. Mondays with Maxwell are for the possibilists, who, while the impossibilists are thanking God for Friday, you are praising God for Mondays. PGFM. Mondays with Maxwell are all for you. And since today is Monday, my friends, let's hear from the man of the hour. He is our leader, our friend, Johna C. Maxwell.
Hi, John Maxwell here. I am so excited that you're with me on Monday with Maxwell. Let me just talk to you from my heart for a moment before I do any teaching. I've been wanting to do this now for some time. Honestly, the seed was kind of planted a year ago when COVID hit. And I spent a few Mondays just trying to help all of us get through kind of the difficult crisis, blindsidedness part of that experience. And then we didn't do any more Mondays. And I've had a few months to kind of think about it. And I missed being with you. And I missed having some weekly time with you. And so I talked to Mark Cole, who runs everything in our life and is such a phenomenal leader. And we decided to come back and start what we call Mondays with Maxwell. It's always going to be on noon Eastern Standard Time. And I just want you to be with us. It's only going to be 20 minutes. It's not going to be long. It's just going to be kind of, let's hit it and let's help you. And really, there's a threefold purpose for this time that we're having every Monday with Maxwell. And one is just very simply, it's who I am to add value to you. My first agenda anytime I'm with anybody for any reason, anywhere, is to add value to you. If I add value to you, all is good. That's who I am. I add value to leaders who multiply value to others. The second reason that I want to have a Monday with Maxwell with you is because I am so proud of the John Maxwell team. This is probably the greatest leadership decision I ever made, just a little bit over 10 years ago, to have a coaching company that we certify coaches with. And so every week I'm just going to take a moment in our segment and you're going to be able to meet one of our coaches and you're going to be so excited because what they are doing is adding value to people. I mean, they're kind of like John Maxwell Jr.'s, and I'm so proud of them. And I know you're going to be excited to just see and hear what they're doing. And the third reason that I want to have a Monday with Maxwell with you every week is I want to develop a mentoring relationship with you. Every year I ask God, I'm a person of faith, you know that, to give me a word for the year. And the reason I ask for a word is I can't really handle much more than that. And in 2018, my word for the year was father. That I was to be a father at this age, a grandfather, to people and do my best to kind of pave the way for your success. Now, that was my word of the year for 2018, but that word has stayed with me right up to this day. I feel that perhaps my highest calling now at this age is to father, grandfather you, come alongside of you. And in fact, I wrote this down. I just want you to have this because What it means to me to be a father, it means that I'm to mentor and empower leaders. Of course, that's who I am. I'm a leader. I'm to unconditionally love you. I'm to be so excited and revel in every success that you have, because that's what fathers do. Good fathers always want their children to do better than what they've done themselves. That I'm to be an example for you to follow. And I'm to, on occasions, in this case, every Monday, provide fatherly advice to you. Remember, my name's John, and I am your friend. And I know what advice meant to me when I was a young leader. And you've heard this story, so I'm not going into it in detail at all. But when I was a young leader, I started off as a pastor, and I had a little country church. 35 people, nothing, okay? And I read a book about the largest churches in America, and I got the names of all those pastors of those 10, and I literally contacted them, and I offered them $100 for 30 minutes of my time. If they would just give me 30 minutes of advice and counseling about how to build a great church, I offered them $100. And back then, and we're talking about back in 1970, at $100, I was only making $4,800 a year. And I was just saying, if you'll just give me a little advice, it's worth a lot of money back then to me. And 2 of those 10 took me up on that. And I can promise you, they just added immeasurable value to me. And then I was in Shanghai in 2009. And while I was over there doing some leadership conferences, I read a Forbes magazine article about business leaders who shared the best advice that they ever received. And I remember reading that article, and I said to myself, there's a time someday in my life that I'm going to share best advice with people. Some of the best advice I've received, and then go to other leaders and find out what's the best advice you ever received. In fact, if you've ever had a dinner with me, you know that I may ask you a question at that dinner table. What's the best advice that you've ever received in your entire life? I love the question. And for the next, 2-3 months on Mondays with Maxwell, we're going to talk about advice. In fact, we're just going to do a series on the best advice I can give you. In fact, to be honest with you, I started a few weeks ago writing down on a piece of paper all the best advice that I had received from others. And the legal page went 1 page and then 2 pages and 3 pages. And I thought, look at all that I have received from other people that have helped me be who I am. And then I got very excited about Mondays with Maxwell, because I thought, you're going to receive, 15, 20 minutes of advice every week that'll just kind of maybe be just what you need, that little bit of light that's just going to help you go down that road just a little bit further. So I'm very excited about that. For me, there have been 5 different sources of advice. What I read, obviously that's true with you. I'm sure it's like Shanghai. Questions that I ask specific questions to get advice from people. I get advice through observing, just watching people, and I get advice from the experiences that I encounter myself, and then advice in podcast or kind of social media stuff like we're doing on Mondays with Maxwell. So I want you to do me a favor. Not only enjoy today, but I want you to, I want you to tell all of your friends and get them to be a part of Mondays with Maxwell, and I promise you we will add value to you. Now, I'm in my wonderful friend Andrew Manzinga's studio, this beautiful studio where I do an amazing amount of virtual stuff, of course, during the time that we live in now. And Andrew is one of the funniest guys I know. He's got a great sense of humor. And when he realized I was going to do a series on best advice, Andrew came in this morning when I came to the studio. Look at this. He said, well, I've got some advice here. And he gave me 2 pages of his advice. And I started reading them, and I started absolutely cracking up. And so if it's okay, I'm just going to, I think what I'll do is I think every Monday with Maxwell, I'll start it off with Andrew's advice, okay? And we'll go from the ridiculous to the hopefully something that's really going to help you. But this is so funny. I mean, Andrew's got such a great sense of humor. On one of these Mondays with Maxwell, Andrew, I'll get you out in front of the camera so they can see who the funny guy is with the advice. Here's what Here's what he gave me this morning. Before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you criticize them, you'll be a mile away and you'll have their shoes. Oh, Andrew, you're just going to bring joy to us every Monday with Maxwell. And now let me give you 2, maybe 3. We'll see how much time I have. Just advice that I would like to share from you, that advice that I've received, and I pass it on to you to add value to you. Number 1, and by the way, this is not in priorities at all. This isn't the most important thing. In fact, what I'll do is 1 week, I'll give you advice from myself that I've learned from others. And then next week, I'll take somebody that's a major leader. In fact, next Monday with Maxwell, I have Ed Bastian. I'll give you some advice that Ed gave me in a golf game that we played just a couple of weeks ago. He's the CEO of Delta Airlines. And then the next week, I'll go back to some of my advice. Then I'll pull out another great leader. I got Dan Cathy in the wings and the CEO of Chick-fil-A. In other words, every week, just for maybe 2 or 3 months, we're just going to give you some good advice that you can apply to your life. Okay, you're ready. So the first one I want to share with you is from my friend Steve Babby. I just did a video for him. He just retired. And I was glad to kind of do a retirement video clipping for him. But I thought so fondly of him because this is what I learned from Steve. Always bring something to the table. Steve Babby, the first time I met him, I was in my 30s. And we had a lunch. And he sat down with me and we had lunch and he had a book. And he said, John, I brought a book with me. I said, I've read it. This really helped me. And let me tell you what I learned. He gave me, maybe a minute of what he learned from the book. And then he handed it to me. He said, I want you to have it. He said, I just think that you'll enjoy it. And I said, well, thank you, Steve. And then, and the next time we had a lunch, which maybe was, I don't know, a couple of months later, we had another lunch. I had a little bit of a business relationship with him. And he came and this time, now this dates us way back. I mean, we're talking about back in the 70s and 80s. And Steve sat down and he had a cassette tape and he said, I just listened to this the other day and I thought of you. And I want you to have this and hopefully it will help you. And then I got the cassette tape. And another time he might bring me an article. Within about 5 or 6 times a meeting with Steve Babby, I understood something about this man. He always brought something to the table. Steve's example and the advice I'm passing on to you from watching him taught me 3 things. 1, intentionally think of others first. You see, Steve didn't come to the table and then all of a sudden say, oh, I wish I had a book for John. I wish I had an audio tape for him. No. Before he ever came, he asked himself intentionally, what can I give? What can I do to add value to John Maxwell? The second thing I learned from Steve Babby is make every meeting more than a meeting. You see, we always had a meeting and we discussed things that we needed to discuss. Of course we did. But the icing on the cake, the cherry on the top, was the fact that Steve Babby always brought something to the table. The third thing that I learned from Steve Babby is that you make yourself more valuable when you consistently add value to people. You see, I always look forward to my meetings with Steve. Why? Because I like meetings? No. Have a lot of meetings. What set Steve apart from everybody else? He brought something to the table, which began to help me ask the question, what do I bring to the table when I meet with someone? I try to, every time I meet with someone, have questions that might be interesting that I can ask, or maybe an idea that I've just picked up that I want to pass on, or bring a resource. And all of that adding value by bringing something to the table had its root from the example of Steve Babby. It goes back very simple. In life, are we a plus in our relationships or are we a minus? You see, Steve, he was a plus. He always brought something to the table when we had our meeting. I hope that that little bit of advice will kind of stay with you this month. Maybe the next meeting you have, you'll kind of think before, what could I bring to the table that just sets me apart from everybody else? I mean, there were meetings, and then there were Steve Babby meetings. Always bring something to the table. Advice number 2. People need recognition, so freely give it to them. We are born to be appreciated. We're born to be recognized. And if you don't really think so, the next time you're like in a restaurant and you see maybe a couple over there and they have just a very young child, maybe 1 year old, just a baby. If you're a booth over and you'll just kind of wave to that baby or play a little bit of hide and seek or just kind of recognize them, that baby is yours for the whole meal. You know that mom will try to turn around to kind of eat their food, but that baby's back there. Now, why? Because we are born to have people recognize us. We want recognition. We want somebody to look at us and say we're special. So let me tell you a story. Okay, this is quite a few years ago, and maybe you'll remember this. Do you remember when the movie The Prince of Egypt came out? It was one of the very first animated films, and it was an animated film about Moses and his life. And, it was a major Hollywood production, one of the first animated films and major producers, the whole deal. Okay. And they asked me if I would be an advisor, and so I flew out a couple times to Los Angeles, and they would show me clips of the film, and they would ask me things like, do you think it's kind of biblically accurate, and does this kind of speak to you, and would this speak to the faith community? And I enjoyed it very much. It was kind of just something I'd never done before, and then I got extra surprised when they asked Margaret and me to come to Hollywood for the premiere. I mean, the red carpet, the lights, the whole deal, the premiere of The Prince of Egypt. And by the way, this was huge. I mean, the voices in this movie were Steve Martin, Michelle Pfeiffer, Val Kilmer, Danny Glover, Sandra Bullock. I mean, this was not like a second-class movie. They put a lot of money in this. This was big. And so we were excited, and so we flew out and we walked the red carpet, and nobody noticed because they were looking at all the actors and actresses, and so we got our seat in the movie theater and we watched The Prince of Egypt. Now, if you know me very well, you know that when the movie's over, I'm done. I'm ready to go. In fact, sometimes when the movie's not over, I'm done and I'm ready to go. And if you ever go to a ball game before the game's over, I'm usually done. I'm ready to go. In fact, one of the most embarrassing things that I do in Margaret's eyes is I'll take people to go see something for me, and sometimes before it's done, we're done. I mean, I want to get out of the parking lot. I don't want to be in line, okay. So you get the picture. I enjoyed The Prince of Egypt. It was an honor to be there. And when it was done, immediately, I mean, I am the first one. I'm up, and I'm starting to walk out, and then I notice nobody's getting up. I'm the only person in the theater that's ready to make an exit. And I just thought, oh, okay, well, something else is going to happen. So I sat down, and what happened was the credit lines of the movie. And what I saw for the next 5 minutes, I'll never forget. As the credit lines began to unfold, as they do in any movie, the peoples, as they would see their name, they would stand up and say, that's me. And everybody would turn around and they'd applaud, and that's you, and way to go, and good job. And for 5 minutes, it was the most amazing encouragement, way to go, attaboy, attagirl community I've ever been in. I mean, I just watched them. And then all of a sudden it hit me. The most important part of the movie wasn't the movie. The most important part of the movie was my name. And what was most amazing to me is these A-list actors and actresses, they stayed till the last credit. I mean, we're down now to the grips. We're down to the least of the least. And I mean, they're turning around and giving them standing ovations and high-fiving them. And as I walked out, I thought to myself, People need recognition. So why not freely give it to them? You see, when I was a kid, my father would put good books in my hand and pay me an allowance to read them. And one of the first books I read in the 7th grade was Dale Carnegie's book on how to win friends and influence people. And what did Dale say? He said, the sweetest sound to a person's ear is the sound of their name. I can still remember my father and I, we took a couple Dale Carnegie classes while I was still in school, and one of them was all about how to remember names. It was John Wooden, my mentor, who taught his basketball players that if somebody throws you a good pass that allows you to make a basket on the way back down the floor, just point to them. Just recognize them. Hey, you're the person. You're the one. In fact, this was a new practice back then in basketball. And one of the players said, Coach, what happens if somebody throws me a pass and I make a basket and I go back down and I point to them? What happens if they're not looking at me? Coach Wooden, this great wise mentor, coach, teacher, smiled with great confidence and said, they'll always be looking. Of course they will. I'm always looking. You're always looking. We're always looking. George Barna is kind of known in the church world as he's kind of like a survey guy. He's the guy that's finding out what the trends are, and a lot of people follow him because his insights and observations and what he learns are very interesting. And George, when I was pastoring in Southern California in San Diego, he would come down and visit us. And one day we were having a conversation. He said, John, I've been coming down to see what the secret sauce is here, because back then that was one of the 10 most influential churches in America. So he said, I'm just hanging with people and asking questions. He said, I thought you would find this to be interesting. When I asked them, what makes you come to this church? Why is this church doing so well? And what's the secret sauce of it? He said the people would look at me and they would say, our pastor knows our name. And he'd say, what do you mean by that? He said, well, we have thousands and thousands, but when I come and I see him, he calls me by name. Well, you see, I did that on purpose. Back then, back in the dark ages, we had Polaroid cameras, and I would have between 130 and 140 people all over the campus, and it would have official host kind of a title there that so everybody could know who they were. And I would just basically ask them, if you're brand new, can we just take a picture of you? And if you let us take a picture of you, I'll do 2 things this week. They'll give me your picture. I want your name on it. And I'll do 2 things. I'll memorize your name, and I'll pray for you. And so when they would come back the next week, I would just call them by name. I knew well over 3,000 names. What made Skyline such a great church, George Barna would ask. The people would say, oh, John, he knows our name. Wow. I only gave you 2 today. When I give advice the next time, I'll probably give you maybe 3. Sometimes maybe I'll get in 4, but I have just a little time, but that's okay, because I want you, when you come to Mondays with Maxwell, to realize this won't take much time, but it will be well worth the time you give it. So let me mentor you every Monday. I'd love to do that. Always the same time, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And let your friends in on this. Bring your team in on it. Let's just build a large group of people who just basically say, every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, you get Monday with Maxwell, and John's just going to share something with us that will add value to us. Now, before we wrap it up, I just need you to give me, 90 seconds, 2 minutes max, because I am so proud of our John Maxwell team coaches, and I want to introduce one of them to you for a moment and let them share with you how we have added value in their life. I'm so excited for you to meet my friend Tina. She's a John Maxwell team member, has been for a few years now. But Tina, when you were sharing with me your story of how you were in the corporate America, basically as an upper executive, and but you kind of fell on the side. Maybe you kind of wanted to coach a little bit, and so you looked into the John Maxwell team and said, hey, I think this is a place for me to kind of land and see what can happen. And I just thought your story was so inspiring. And I know you're going to enjoy this. So listen to Tina. Just talk to me for a moment about how you got from kind of upper management into the corporate world to where you are today.
Exciting story. So I was working in corporate America with a background in finance. And every day that I went to work, I was absolutely unfulfilled. And I knew that there was something that I had to do to really tap into purpose.
Sure.
So for me, early on, I identified that my purpose is to use this gift that I always got in the comments section on my report card. You're talkative. So I said, I need to use that.
You're talkative. So I got to start using this verbal gift.
I have to use this verbal gift.
I love it.
So I started to explore coaching because I understood my purpose in life is to be a catalyst and connector in other people's lives. So I had to find a way to do that. And once I tapped into purpose, John, I said, I can never do anything else. So I started part-time just trying to figure it out myself and build the business, and really wanted someone. And I was a distant student of yours, and I just really wanted some way to really crystallize what it was that I was doing.
Sure. And so you found out about us, I guess, right? And so then you became a John Maxwell team member. So how have we taken you to the next level? Because now you do this full time. Mm-hmm. You're no longer in upper management in corporate America. So what caused you and allowed you to make this positive shift in your life?
Yeah, so I am enjoying being a full-time speaker, coach, and trainer on your team, the John Maxwell team.
And we're enjoying having you.
Yes.
We sure are.
But I will tell you the motivator for me. So I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis is called the show me state. So when I joined, I said, I need someone to really show me what they're doing because I need to really do this in a big way. So I went to the online platform where we go as team members to see what's going on. And lo and behold, there was a testimonial from Chris Robinson. And Chris Robinson had landed this $50,000 single deal. So I'd made that money, but not in a single deal. So I said, this is the show me state. And he's showing me that he did that. And he said, trust the process. So I said, I'm going to trust the process. And I immediately after that went to a client, started talking to the client about speaking, coaching, and training. And then they asked me, what do we need to put in the budget? And I saw Chris Robinson's face on the platform. And I said, 50,000. And they said, well, we can't quite do that, but we can do 45,000.
Oh, come on.
So I was like, okay, I am well on my way. And now that I'm a part of the team, it's really elevated my platform. You know, I was trying to figure it out along the way, but in 2016, it was a game changer. It elevated my business in ways unimaginable. And imagine even your name at the bottom in my email signature leading me to other opportunities because people are saying, this has to be God. You know, I'm reading 21 laws, you know, and things like that. So just having the opportunity to have access to these phenomenal resources and then coupling that with my gift of gab that the teachers told me to be quiet about, it's been working for me.
You know, Tina, wait, you know, I love what you just shared. And you said it, and I think it is true sometimes that, you know, because on your card, you're a John Maxwell team certified coach, the name helps. It helps get you in.
Absolutely.
And the only reason I'm mentioning that is not to call attention to myself at all. Here's why I mentioned that. When I started the John Maxwell team, my biggest issue was, should I lend other people my name? I've worked hard to build up my reputation. I've worked very hard to build up what I am and who I am. And should I risk it with other people? And I came to the conclusion that I wanted to help people so much that I'd be willing to lend my name to people like you. And then you come into the studio today and you tell me the story, and I see how beautiful you're doing and helping people. And I'm saying to myself, Tina, I am so glad that I've given you the John Maxwell team name and certified you. And I would love to give you my name and add value to you and serve you too.
So now we see there is good advice and Andrew advice. Let's call that unadvice. I hope you've enjoyed today's Monday with Maxwell Lessons. What's some good advice or some unadvice you've received? Let us know in the comments. And what can we say about our John Maxwell team members? Every day, they look for ways to lead in and live out Maxwell leadership principles and philosophies. We're so grateful for the John Maxwell team. Each week, we'll feature a member or mentor from our team who will share their story and their journey with you. Why? Because we want you to see the real stories of difference makers, of value multipliers, and of possibilists. If you want to learn how you too can join John's team of difference makers, go to mondayswithmaxwell.com. Let me say that again. It's Mondays, plural, mondayswithmaxwell.com. Let us know how you saw Mondays with Maxwell and how you want to make a difference. Thank you again for watching today. We'll see you next week for another episode of Mondays with Maxwell.